Hi, everybody. This is Helena Hart, and welcome to the Master Your Magnetism podcast, where I help you shift your energy and radiate self-love so you can create the life and relationship you've always wanted. My husband, Tom, is joining us today, so welcome and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I really wanted to get a man's perspective on this topic. And by the way, this is our first ever live broadcast using an app called Bullhorn. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 things you need to stop doing immediately with potential relationship partners if you want them to prioritize you and truly commit. And these apply if you're in a relationship as well. My audience is mostly women, so we'll be talking about this from the woman's perspective for the most part, but these actually apply to both men and women for all the guys listening too. And we're also going to be sharing 5 things you need to start doing instead if you want to attract this person or the right person for you or shift the dynamic in your current relationship. And if you're listening to the replay of this, I'm going to include a link to download the Bullhorn app in the episode details so you can join me live next time. So I'll let you start, Tom. What's the first thing people need to avoid doing in dating and relationships?
Well, the first thing to avoid doing is making this particular partner or this particular man, in this case, generally, the prize or the goal in your mind.
Yeah, that's so important. I hear from so many women, and men can do this too, people who aren't attracted to that many people. And then one person comes along and they finally feel these intense feelings of attraction or chemistry for someone. There's this tendency to kind of put that person on a pedestal. And from there, you can't really help it. You're going to try to prove yourself to them or win them over, even in very subtle ways, like trying to show them that you're a great catch or how amazing the two of you would be together. And all of those things actually decrease that person's attraction for you and your perceived value in their eyes, even if they like you. So if you're feeling a sense of longing for someone, especially someone whose energy isn't coming towards you or who's not making you a priority or committing to you, that's just never going to work for you. And what we're going to share in the rest of this episode will help you start to turn things around. So the second thing you want to avoid doing is chasing a man who's not pursuing you. And again, this can happen in very subtle ways. Notice if you're always the person that's initiating contact or trying to hold everything all together. I know I hear from a lot of women who are afraid to stop doing everything in this relationship or potential relationship out of a fear that they'll lose this man or this connection will just fade away because they've been the one trying to keep it all together. This could look like more subtle things too, like even mentally chasing a man by constantly thinking about him and obsessing, even if he's not right in front of you. So you don't want to be the one putting in all the effort and initiating everything and setting up all the plans and driving to him and paying for all the dates and basically making it as easy as possible for him.
Right, and that brings us to the third tip of something to avoid doing, which is to avoid tolerating bad behavior, quote unquote, or accepting crumbs. And I think that a good way to initiate the thought process around avoiding doing this is asking a simple question, which is, would you tolerate this type of behavior from a new person, a new man? And if you wouldn't, then it begs the question as to why you are tolerating that from this particular person.
Yeah, I hear from women all the time who say, I would never tolerate this from another guy or a brand new person, but there's just something about this guy that just keeps me holding on to him or keeps me holding out hope that maybe one day things will change and he'll finally put both feet in and start prioritizing me or committing to the kind of relationship I want. And if you're tolerating bad behavior or anything that doesn't feel good to you, it's just never going to happen. And we'll explain why as we get into some of these other things you need to stop doing. So that brings us to number 4, and that is making excuses for this person. This is something I see women doing a lot. I know men do this as well. They really like this one person and they say, well, he's been really busy. And this I'm really busy excuse is something that men and women both give all the time. And I've really found there are different categories of people who say they're busy in dating and relationships. Some people say they're busy just because they're simply not interested and they don't want to have a straightforward conversation. They don't want to hurt your feelings. Some people are somewhat interested. They may or may not be busy, but they're only somewhat interested. They're interested enough to hang out with you every once in a while, but they're not interested enough to really make you a priority and truly commit. And these can be the people that are so easy to get hooked on for all of these other reasons we're explaining. You feel a lot of chemistry with them. They likely have all of the qualities you're looking for in a relationship partner, but there's just this gap between where you are and where you want to be with them. And so just catch yourself if you find yourself making excuses for the person because they're probably making excuses to you, right?
Right. I know that when we were first starting to date, you had mentioned that you had this sense that I was very genuinely busy, but that didn't prohibit me from prioritizing you in our relationship. And I think for me, one of the things that being busy actually does is focus my energy and attention. And whether I am very busy with work or whatever the case is, the things that are the most important to me tend to be the things that when I have the available time, those are the things that I want to focus my energy on. So that was never a hurdle to the priority of our relationship. And I know that you often, in response to even people in your life, family and friends, will sometimes receive comments that we've discussed where there's this immediate need to make an excuse for a man who says that he is busy or is not prioritizing the relationship. I believe you've heard things like when you've asked the question, when was the last time you saw this man, or has he scheduled your next date yet? You'll get a response like, well, he just got home. He has his kids this weekend or
Yeah.
something like that. And I think that that immediate need to try to make an excuse is sort of a projection of a need to excuse him to yourself. I think that the person probably recognizes that there's a deficiency there in what they are getting from that man, and they need to justify that to themselves so it gets outwardly projected to other people when they inquire as well.
Such a good point. Yes, this is why I wanted to get your perspective on this because that is so brilliant. I haven't even thought about that. So, someone like you fit into this other category, someone who is actually genuinely busy, but they're also highly interested and motivated to get into a relationship with you, move things forward, and see where things would go. And so, men who fall into that category might actually be busy. I mean, most of us are pretty busy these days, right? But it's not going to affect your relationship all that much. You might hear about how busy he is or I see how busy you are every day, but it doesn't affect our relationship because we spend so much quality time together and we have from the beginning. You put that effort in right at the beginning. So how things start out with someone is typically how they continue to unfold. But I see a lot of people making excuses for someone and they're just hoping that one day, if they can just show him everything they have to offer, one day he'll snap to and realize what an amazing woman you are and finally commit. And it just doesn't work that way. So you want to watch what he's doing right from the start.
Right. That leads us into number 5, which is waiting for a man endlessly or waiting for your potential partner endlessly. You want to avoid getting to this place where you're holding out that hope, like you said, that somehow at some point something might miraculously change. And that never really happens. So you're in this perpetual state of waiting for that miracle to happen in your relationship.
Yeah, this is the number one thing that I want women to turn around. I know men can do this too, right? But if you've convinced this person, either with your words or usually it's with your actions, that you're just always going to be there waiting, there's no reason for them to commit to you, prioritize you, or do anything different because they know you're not going anywhere. You've somehow given them the sense that they can just do whatever they want. I know I hear from women all the time who say things like, well, why won't he let me go? If he's not interested, if he doesn't want to commit, why does he keep coming around? And the answer is because this is a great deal for him, right? He's getting everything. He gets to hang out with you. Maybe the two of you are physically intimate. He's happy to take all the benefits that you're giving him. But just because a man is spending time with you and continues to come around doesn't mean he sees you as that one special person that he never wants to lose. That's why it's so important to not wait around for a guy endlessly, especially someone who's not putting in that effort and making you a priority. So those are the 5 things you want to avoid doing. Let's move into the 5 things you should do instead if you want someone to prioritize you and truly commit. Do you want to start with the first one?
Yeah, the first thing to do instead is reframe your mindset around your current situation, the current relationship, and take that particular person off the pedestal. You actually want to get to the point where if a man is not prioritizing your relationship, he fades away as quickly as possible. And I think, like you were saying before, I think that sometimes there's this tendency to want to dump more and more energy into a relationship because you're the only one holding it together. Basically, you're holding on to all the threads and trying to tie it back up again. And if that's the case, then the sense is that if you were to stop putting that energy in, he would just simply drift away. But if you reframe your mindset around the relationship, then you can get to a place where you realize that that's actually the best thing, that you want him to fade away as quickly as possible. I think there's an analogy of pushing a boulder up a hill where, you can keep pushing that boulder up the hill, but as soon as it crests the hill or if it never quite makes it to the top, it just rolls back down again. And so the quicker that you can allow that boulder to roll down the hill, the less energy that you have wasted on that relationship that is ultimately not going in the right direction.
That is so true. That's such a great analogy. Something I say all the time is that you actually want to embody this feeling of gratitude in advance when the wrong people show you that they're the wrong people by often it's in what they're not doing, by not putting in effort, not making time for you, not prioritizing the relationship. If a guy fades away or shows you that he's not the right person, you want to be grateful rather than having all of this emotional charge around it or trying to like keep things going. I know it can be so easy to want to keep these half-hearted connections active and alive because you feel that you might not feel this way about anyone else ever again. And that is just not true. It is our job to convince you that no person is your last chance, right? It often takes moving through these people who are the wrong people in order to quickly start attracting the right person for you. So that brings us to the second thing you want to do, and that is stop trying to make something happen with this person. You want to see what they do all on their own. This is for people who are the ones putting in all the effort. If you're the person who's always initiating contact, always setting up plans, always following up, and if you stop doing that, I know there's this fear that that person's just going to drop off or fade away. But like you said in the last one, you actually want that to happen, right?
Right. And I think that if there's the sense that that relationship would just simply dissolve were you to not put more energy into it, that tends to indicate that you are working against or fighting the underlying nature of the relationship. The nature of a relationship like that is that it wants to dissolve. And so trying to hold it together is sort of a waste of energy on your part. You are fighting against the nature of that relationship to dissolve it, as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I know it can be so difficult, especially when you have strong feelings for someone and that's rare. You see your feelings for them as kind of rare and special. And there's all kinds of reasons that happens. Usually they kind of activate your childhood wounds or what love felt like to you earlier in life. So you think that, oh my gosh, this is my twin flame or my divine counterpart, or I'm never going to feel this way about anyone else ever again. We could probably do a whole nother episode just on that, right? Your subconscious mind has hooked up these feelings of chemistry and attraction with someone who feels familiar to you, who activates what love felt like to you earlier in life. But just like you said, you can fight reality all you want, but eventually reality is going to win, meaning the reality of this person's intentions and interest level. So you can't create in someone else's reality. There's nothing you can do or say to make someone who doesn't feel it for you all on their own fall in love or commit to you, right? I mean, you actually don't want that to happen.
Right.
I mean, you could actually probably get someone to say, okay, I'll be your boyfriend or we could be exclusive. I mean, you might even be able to make someone propose or marry you, but then you end up in a situation where your needs aren't getting met, right?
Right.
We'll get into that as we talk about some of these other things. But that brings us to the third thing you want to do, and that is ignore his words, watch his actions. What are his actions telling you 90+% of the time? Are these the actions of someone who's motivated to get into a relationship with you or motivated to prioritize you and work on things if you're already in a relationship? The only exception I have to this is I hear from women all the time where a guy keeps coming around and it's almost like they're dating, but he's flat out telling her that he only wants to be friends, or he never wants to get married again, or he never sees himself committing. He's not ready for a relationship. If a guy or a woman is saying anything like that, it's important to believe what they're saying. But that's the only exception. Other than that, you want to watch their actions, because that's going to tell you pretty much everything you need to know about their interest level. I know I hear from a lot of women who are hooked on men who might say that they're looking for a serious relationship, or they'd love to settle down and get married and start a family one day. And they hold on to those words, especially these men where there's just always something preventing them from making future plans or putting both feet in. They say, oh no, well, he says one day he wants to get married. He's just really busy right now. And they hold on to those words rather than watching their actions, because their actions, as they pertain to this particular woman, are not those of a man who's motivated to get into a relationship and move things forward, right?
Right. I know that we've talked to people, friends in our own lives who maybe are online dating, for example, and in their profile, they say that they are looking for a committed relationship. They would like to have kids someday, perhaps, or something along those lines. But when they get into a relationship with somebody whom they've met online, they are not that interested, and that person just takes what they have had in their profile as an indication that they would be willing to try to make it work with that person. And the fact is that they may eventually at some point be open to a committed relationship and to having a family or whatever the case is, but they aren't as interested, unfortunately, in doing that with that person.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, I think it's important to watch the actions of that person in this particular situation with you.
Absolutely. That's so important. I mean, the opposite is true too. We've talked about this before, the fact that we met online. Most people know that by now, right? In Tom's "What are you looking for" section on his online dating profile, it says that he wasn't sure what he was looking for. And sometimes we hesitate to say that because I don't want women just starting to go after men who say they're not sure and try and change their mind. But the point is, he showed me with his actions that he was interested, and right away made me a priority, and things move forward very quickly. Do you have anything you want to say about that?
Right. And I'm sure that we could probably do a whole other conversation on the things that maybe you should look for or not pay close attention to in like an online dating profile. But I think that it's important to be wary of what a person says, particularly what they may be saying objectively outside of the context of a specific relationship, because those things may or may not apply in your specific situation. I mean, in your relationship with a person, the things that really matter are how that partner interacts with you and what that partner is showing you about how he would like to move forward or not. So what he may or may not want objectively outside of that relationship is really not that relevant necessarily to your particular situation.
So true. I mean, has anyone ever been ghosted by someone who said they were looking for a long-term relationship? That's everybody, right? Has anyone ever had something not work out with someone who said they wanted to get married someday? It's so irrelevant to the specifics of the situation. Now, for our situation, I knew not to get invested until he showed me with his actions that he was serious, and it was just all about the actions, right?
Right.
So this is really important to keep in mind.
Right. And I think that brings us to number 4, which is to ask yourself if you yourself want to commit to the relationship dynamic as it currently stands. And that's to say that you should not make any assumptions about what might happen in the future or about what changes that he might have to undergo in order to enable the type of relationship that you would like to have. The fact is that this is the relationship dynamic right now, and that's probably representative of what you could expect in the future. And if you're unhappy with it, then why would you want to try to get further commitment to that from the other person when you yourself are not in a position where you would want to commit yourself to it? You don't want to tie yourself to something that you're unhappy with, only with the hope that at some point it would miraculously change. So ask yourself that question. Ask yourself whether you yourself want to commit to the relationship as it stands.
Yeah, I know we hear from a lot of women, and of course men do this too, where they say, yeah, I would commit to this relationship if we lived closer together, if he had more time in his schedule, if he was making me a priority. And so if you're using that word if to say, yes, I would commit to this relationship if these things were all different, that's a clue that you're probably wasting your time, don't you think?
Right.
And that brings us to the last thing you want to do, and that is you have to choose yourself before this person or a high quality person is ever going to choose you. You have to put your own heart first. Something I say all the time is that you have to put your own desire for a great relationship with someone who is consistent and reliable and dependable ahead or above your desire to just be with this one specific person right now who's not quite stepping up or doing the job. And what does this look like in real life? This could look like all different kinds of things. This could involve a breakup or conversation with the person that you've been involved with, or it could be simply getting bored and losing interest in anyone who's not putting an effort and showing you with their actions that they're serious about you. It could look like drawing a line and setting a boundary and saying something like, I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I think you're such a great person. And what I'm looking for is a little more consistency, or it doesn't feel as though we're on the same page. There are so many different situations here. That's where getting some personalized help can really make all the difference in the world. But basically, you have to choose yourself and put your own heart first. If you do have specific questions about your unique situation, you can always go to feminineenchantment.com to get your personal questions answered by my top coaches. You can also read on that page about 4 more mistakes you want to avoid to get off what I call the heartbreak treadmill. Basically, it's like showing this man every single thing you have to offer and only being taken for granted or put as like a secondary option in his life. And we don't want that for you. So you can go to feminineenchantment.com if you'd like to get your personal questions answered by my top coaches who are amazing. You'll also get access to my feminine enchantment system and the Goddess Club. I believe it's on sale for a $1 trial right now. So I'll include that link in the description of the episode details. And this was great. Our first live broadcast. So much fun. Did you have a good time?
Yeah, thanks.
We should definitely do more of these. So again, if you're listening to the replay of this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I'll include a link to download the Bullhorn app in the description. So you can download that app. Once you do it, go ahead and search for and follow my podcast, Master Your Magnetism, to get notified when we go live so I can connect with you guys and talk to you personally. So I don't see any questions. I see some people in the chat. So hi, thank you so much for joining. And make sure you're following my podcast here on Bullhorn and also on Spotify and Apple. So thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you again very soon. If you're tired of struggling in your love life and you want a proven system to get into and maintain a relationship where you're consistently loved, valued, and cherished, go to forever1234.com. Again, that's forever1234.com.